Part 1. The Argument. It was almost midday when the song came on the radio. Tate was throwing rubbish into the compactor and tidying the kitchen. She was rushing, as usual. Her shift was due to start at 1, and she was completing the last of her chores. On the go since 8, she'd already shopped for herself and her mother, posted the mail, and dropped into a friend for coffee. Miles was in the garage studio, where he'd been for just 15 minutes. His old but reliable Atari computer was just booting up. He stood impatiently, with his coffee in hand, waiting for the screen to light up, irritated with the time it took to start his day's work. He'd only been up for half an hour. The radio had been on since Tate had woken up, but the music up till this point had gone unnoticed. It was rare for you to be played on the radio. After all, it only reached 91 in the US Billboard chart some years previously.
Lightning in the sky. When you walk into a room, all time just passes by. Your face lights up the darkest starlit night. When you glance at me, my heart beats on high.
Mars heard it straight away, and before the song had reached its first chorus, he was calling Tate to turn off the radio. Tate was in her own world. She barely noticed the music, her mind fixed upon getting to work. Another 10 seconds passed and the music continued before Mars began shouting to turn the radio off. This time she heard him, but chose to ignore. Her attention was now drawn to the music, and for several moments her mind flirted with the memories of yesteryear. She smiled as she remembered.
I wrote this song especially for you. Every word you hear is absolutely true. All I think about is being close to you. Please believe me, I will always love you. You are the sun, the wind.
Mars's mild annoyance with the radio was quickly transforming to anger. As a rule, he never lost his temper. Normally, he would slip away to be on his own if he felt angry. This time he felt trapped. He now felt sure that Tate was deliberately ignoring him, and the sound of his own music playing on the radio was a reminder of his failure to achieve. Tate was already moving towards the radio as the door between the kitchen and the garage flew open. She had every intention of turning it off. She was about to leave for work anyway. Mars came through the door as if chased by a herd of elephants. The door swung back and crashed into the compacted rubbish. One stride and his clenched fist hit the top of the radio close to the on-off button. The radio was off, but it bounced off the windowsill onto the floor and broke into several pieces. Tate was astonished. In all the years they'd been married, she'd never seen Mars like this. As she surveyed the damage, anger welled up inside her and she exploded. Tate launched into a 5-minute verbal tirade on his behaviour over the last few years. He was lazy, incompetent, unloving, uncaring, moody and hurtful. She had supported him for years and she wasn't going to do that anymore. He was never going to get anywhere with his music and he should give up, be a man and get a proper job. He didn't have an ounce of romance in his soul and wasn't the man she married. If she had known how things would turn out, she would never have married him in the first place. His friends took advantage of her, messing up the house, camping in her living room. They were all intolerable time wasters and losers. She was sick to death of his behaviour, and he could find someone else to mother him because she was going to move back with her mother. Mars didn't know quite what hit him. Afterwards, he remembered that it felt like school days when the headmaster would give him a dressing down, followed by detention. This time, it was worse. This was serious. Tate had gone too far, he thought. He tried to interject with defensive comments about Tate's mother and how he was working for their future and that his friends were good men. He tried to pacify her by saying that his friends wouldn't stay in the future. His overwhelming feeling, though, was devastation and dejection.
Seems to me the way my life's going, something's gotta change. Need to move on to pastures new, or I'll go mad.
He was still sitting with his head clasped by his hands when he heard the front door slam and Tate was gone. He felt sure she'd be back later. As he sat, his mood would swing from anguish to anger.
Nothing seems to work. I don't know why. I can't believe it's true. Because I tried so hard. I always keep on trying. Can't believe it's true. Can't believe why my life's falling down. I need to find a way home. Can't believe it's true. Can't believe why my life's falling down. I need to find a way home.
How could she say he wasn't romantic? He wrote songs about love for boy bands. Lazy? He worked till 1 a.m. Yes, for sure she'd be back, Miles consoled himself. It's amazing how time flies when contemplating a problem. Miles thought about calling Tate's mother and even picked up the phone and pressed auto dial. Before the ringtone played, he thought the better of it and put the phone down. He felt sure Tate's mother had been against him from the start and began to imagine their discussion. He's this and he's that, he's bad, blah, 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 as he paced up and down in the living room. It was now midnight, and Tate hadn't phoned. He had tried on and off to get into some music, wandering in and out of the garage. Now, nothing was working. He was still wavering between anger and desolation when he finally called it a day and retired to their bedroom and tried to sleep. It was 5 a.m. He didn't sleep for more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time. Tate would have been surprised to see Miles at 8 taking his first cup of coffee. The morning after the argument, Miles had resolved himself to trying harder. He felt some of Tate's complaints were unjustified, but he knew in his heart that he must make amends. He decided to call her at work later, as he didn't want to risk talking to her mother, the witch. He would smooth talk her, make a few pertinent promises, and she'd be back. A good plan, he mused. Miles was confident of success. He had a few reservations, but he pushed those to the back of his mind. As the clock touched 12, Miles picked up the phone and called Tate's work number. He knew she'd be at work on time. She always arrived everywhere on time, unlike him. "She's not in today," said the voice down the phone. He tried her mobile. It was off. Damn! He would have to call her mother's home. Miles took a deep breath and dialed her mother's home. His pulse had already risen before the phone was answered. "She doesn't want to talk to you, and neither do I. Please don't call again. We'll phone you. Bye." And Tate's mother hung up. "We'll phone you? We'll phone you? Jeez," he muttered. "What the We'll phone you?" So Tate had become mother-in-law and Tate combined. This was going to be a battle, if not a war. Miles was still muttering to himself as the sound of the local paper hitting the mat outside the front door made him jump. He thought it might be Tate coming back, and for an instant he smiled a knowing smile. His heart sank as he picked up the paper and tossed it onto the sofa. The realization that his problems were just starting was dawning on him, and he lit a cigarette and slumped onto the sofa. Miles needed a plan of action, a plan that would make Tate see that he was doing something positive. He needed a proper job. But it couldn't be a job that tied him down, just a job that appeased Tate. He needed a job that looked good, but one that merely served the purpose. He picked up the local paper and went to the jobs section. He scanned the jobs advertised. Most were too serious for him and would curtail his musical activities. He picked up a pen and started crossing out unacceptable jobs, voicing their descriptions to himself out loud. This left him with just 2 alternatives. Would it be the poodle parlour part-time or bar work? No contest. He called the bar and eventually the phone was answered. A gruff man with a New Yorker's accent answered and hastily arranged an interview for the following day. Miles didn't feel he had achieved much that day and had already sunk into a depressive state by the time he went to bed. Tate's comments were still ringing in his head, and the thought of her mother's interference filled him with anxiety. It was no better when he awoke early, the second successive day, and readied himself for his interview. He checked the mailbox. More bills, and this time it might be him who had to pay for them. Miles wandered towards town, shoulders slumped and head down.
Life's too short to work and not enjoy it. Not a day goes by when I don't think about
He was always laid back, but this was different. His mind was consumed by events of the last 2 days as he began to kick an empty drinks can along the sidewalk. Miles didn't hear the police patrol vehicle pull up alongside him, or the driver calling him to stop. He'd just kicked the can hard against the wall when the hand landed on his shoulder. Miles protested his innocence when informed by the very domineering policeman that littering was banned by the city council and that a fine of up to $1,000 could be imposed. He pleaded his innocence, but was given a dressing down. The officer took Miles's details and handed him a ticket. The can was put in the bag and was taken as evidence before the police car pulled away. It doesn't rain, it pours.
Cause I have to. What's in store for me when I get up today, tomorrow, forever? Can't believe it's true. Can't believe my mama's falling down. I need to find a way. Can't believe it's true. Can't believe my mama's falling down. I need to find a way home. Find my way home.
Miles hardly noticed the dour exterior of the bar as he checked that the name of the establishment was the same as that written on his piece of paper. He straightened himself and tried to open the door, but it was locked. He looked for a bell in vain. Finally, he tapped on the glazed door. He waited and started to knock progressively louder. It seemed an eternity until a man appeared behind the door and unbolted it to let Miles in. The man was very agitated and berated Miles for banging so hard and for so long. He asked Miles whether he was always so impatient and suggested he might have hoodlum tendencies before beckoning him in. That was Miles's first experience of Pat Riley. Pat soon calmed down and introduced himself. He explained that his wife was unwell, which was the reason he was annoyed by the banging at the door. He asked Miles a few simple questions relating to bar work, told him how much he was willing to pay, and offered Miles the job. It was a whirlwind interview lasting no more than 2 minutes, and Miles took the job.